Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me make sure my door's shut. Yeah, it is. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here today. Zoom has had some very interesting things going on, as you may have been reading, because there's a lot of Zoom bombing. They've implemented some security measures, and some of those we don't have control over. So next week, I'll probably have a password, and at this time, let's just use the same password we're using today, which you all received through GroupMe. I did post that on Blackboard, so anybody who's not on GroupMe, I hope will think to go to Blackboard and find that. So I'm going to jump right in to our agenda, so you know what I have planned for today. I do want to do a roll call because I do want you all to participate in the Zoom meetings. I recognize that you all have life moving on as we're in these interesting times. So I do want to go ahead and make roll call so that I can make sure that people are at least engaged. Don't worry that this is going to be a significant piece of your grade, although participation is at 10% now. So I'm going to start with a roll call, and then I'm going to spend some time on the syllabus, which I'll pull up. Then we'll have a discussion on the days in the lives of social workers on the 2 readings that y'all had. Okay. And then I have some lecturing on family. Anything else you all want to add to the agenda? You'll have to unmute yourself. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and take roll. Alyssa.
Hello. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Okay. I was just making sure. I'm here.
Okay. Anna, I see you. Andrew.
I'm here.
Caitlin.
I'm here.
All right. I'm also just testing to see if y'all know how to unmute yourself. Chastity.
Here.
Thank you. Shauna? Is it Shauna or Sinead? Shauna, right?
Shauna. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I always have a problem with your name. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Doria.
I'm here.
Floor?
Here.
You must be calling in. I don't see your name up here, but that's
I
fine.
don't know why it's doing that.
Okay. Quite all right. Gaspar.
I'm here.
Cool. Grace?
I'm here.
Hi, Grace. Jarvey.
I'm here.
All right. Well, you must be dialing in somewhere. I don't see you, but that's okay. I hear you. James, say here so we can. Okay, that's not bad. Jackie.
I'm here.
Jennifer Shelton.
Here.
Oh, there you are. Jessica Newton. I don't see Jessica up here. Jessica Regina.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Joe Perez. I don't see him. Jose Martinez. Judy. Saw you somewhere.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Well, that's right. You're coming up as support. Did you rename yourself support?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, you can play around on the screen and rename yourself if you want. So.
Oh, yes, I do want. Thank you.
Okay. But we appreciate you being our support today. Kim. Hi. You know how to, and I'm practicing unmuting also. There you go.
There I am. Hello.
Thank you. All right. Thanks. I appreciate it. Lisa.
Hello.
Hello, Lisa. Mackenzie.
Here.
Hi, Mackenzie.
Hello.
Maria, I see you.
Yeah, hello, I'm here.
Thanks. Rose, there you are. Hi, Rose. Sarah. I don't see Sarah logged in. Tabitha.
I'm here. Tabby's fine. I don't
Tabby's
know why.
all right.
Yeah.
And then Yahaira.
I'm here.
Cool. All right, I'm going to go back through. I'm missing not too many. Jessica Newton. You know, I think Jessica's been on GroupMe a lot, and she was on earlier. If someone wouldn't mind contacting her and seeing if she got the password okay. And then Joe Perez and Jose, nope, and Sarah. All right, we'll catch up with them later. All right. I'm going to start with this. Can anyone see if, are we still being recorded? Because I started it again.
Yes,
Yeah, it's still recording.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, I thought I would start off with an update on the syllabus. So let's go right there. Oh, yeah. Of course, it's not going to, there it is. Update on the syllabus. It should be right there. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know why. This was supposed to be the correct link. It doesn't like me. All right, I gotta go find my syllabus. Hang on. You cannot minimize while you're recording. Well, gosh, of course. There it is. There's that right there. It doesn't like it again. Ah, there it was. It went away. There. Okay, hold on, folks. I can see it on my screen, but you can't see it on yours, can you? All right.
No.
Working it. I'm working it. Yes, I know that too. I had this all set up. It worked. It worked today just fine, but it's not going to work today for y'all. So I'm going to go. Here we go. Now you see how my life is organized. Of course, you've seen this before. This is how long I've been teaching Intro to Social Work. And here's the stuff I never throw away. So syllabus, and the syllabus as of, I'll do this one because I know we're better than. You are seeing the syllabus in front of you, aren't you? Thank you, James. I see your head moving. Okay. I made a few changes, and I'll just jump in right here. You should have received this earlier. What I've done, and this is all based on the information I got from you all, the feedback I got from you all on some of the volunteer work that some of you are doing and that some of you have done. So here's what I've got. The 40 hours of volunteer work is still required. However, you have 3 additional options if you can't complete the 40 hours. And I have cut the final paper down from 5 to 7 pages. It is now only 4 to 6 pages. It is, for the most part, the same requirement that I had before at the beginning of the year. The section you're not going to do is your experience in the volunteer work and the strengths and weaknesses you have. For those of you who have a significant amount of volunteer work, if you want to add that, it's okay to do that. You will have 7 critical thinking essays. I'm not doing the 8 and drop one. Instead, I'm adding on more critical thinking essays. You already completed a midterm exam and it's up on Blackboard. You will have a final exam and participation is now 10%. So the big piece of this starts right here. Sorry, that's your final paper. I don't think there are any questions on that. I will take questions in just a moment after I get through the volunteer hours. So if you have completed at least 29 hours, then what I want you to do is document those hours and upload them onto Blackboard in whatever format you have. If you've completed between 17 and 28 hours, I want you to write one additional critical thinking essay. So for people in that position, that would mean that you would have 7 critical essays plus 1 additional that you choose. And then turn in your proof of between 17 and 28 hours. Option 3 is if you've completed between 5 and 16 hours of work, I need documentation on that uploaded to Blackboard, and then 2 additional critical thinking essays. And they can be on any chapter you choose. Then finally, if you have not completed, well, if you've completed 5 hours or less, then you need to write 3 additional critical thinking essays so that you can receive full credit for this assignment. They can be on any chapter in the Days of Lives of Social Workers by Linda May Grobman. For those of you who may be freaking out because you don't write that well, what I'm going to do is I will be still grading on some APA format and some grammar and things like that, but I will weight these more on the side of content. There's a couple of you who are getting the content, but you're not that good of writers, so your grades are a little bit lower than you want them to be. So just know that I will not be weighting these as heavy on grammar, outlining, and format. Reason being is if you were to do your volunteer hours and getting that experience, you wouldn't have to be writing and showing me that you have that skill. So I see that there are a few things in the chat, but I am going to stop sharing for a moment until I need to share again and open it up for discussion. What questions do you have?
I have a question.
Yes.
In showing proof of my volunteer hours, I took a picture of the worksheet from the center I volunteer at, but I left the form with the executive director and she was supposed to sign it and send it back.
Okay.
But I only have a picture of it. Will you take that or should I contact her for the form?
No. If you have a picture of how you signed in, upload that and then I'll know. As long as I need some kind of documentation, and part of this is going to be honor system, but I just want some kind of documentation on how many hours you actually have. That's going to be the key. Other questions, and I'll go to the chat real quick so I can see if there's anything. Oh, I was going to ask that as well. Yes, I did say that you're only doing 7 critical thinking essays and you're not dropping an 8th one. That is correct. I've gotten rid of that, and I'm only requiring you to do 7 critical thinking essays because I want you to. I don't want you to have to do an additional 8th one, which would make it 11 essays. For those of you who don't have any hours or 5 hours or less, you're going to have to be writing 10 total critical thinking essays. Did that answer that question? Gaspar has a question.
So what if you already completed essay number 8?
And that can count as one of your first critical thinking essays that you're doing towards your volunteer hours.
And then would I have, go ahead.
I have a question. When is all the critical thinking essays due?
I'll make those due the same day as the, and this is just the 3 additional critical thinking essays. I'll allow those to be due the same day as the final paper. Again, I'm not going to be grading them as heavy on grammar, and so you won't have a lot of comments other than things that have to do with content. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Gaspar, what was your follow-up question?
All right, so because I know that we have to write about an organization that we want to volunteer at
Yes.
as far as one of the final papers.
Yes.
And then we also have other papers that are actually like, you said something about you can choose a reading and then write about it or something like that.
Okay. Prior to, okay, last week you were required to do 7 critical thinking essays with an 8th optional one, meaning if you did 8, I dropped the lowest grade. And you had 2 papers that were due, and that was the social service agency and the importance of social work. I have dropped, I'm not requiring you to do a lengthy paper on the importance of social work. Instead, you need to write 3 additional critical thinking essays in order to fulfill the 40 hours that you were required to do during the semester. Those 3 critical thinking essays that are at your option and won't be weighed as heavy on grammar and APA format, those go down as you have completed hours. So if you've completed up to whatever amount, and I don't have it in front of me, you either do, you're going to have to do 7, everybody has to do 7 critical thinking essays. Many people will have to do 3 additional critical thinking essays, or 2 critical thinking essays, or 1, and then the social service agency paper. Does that sound right?
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yes. So those 3 additional critical thinking essays will be due on April 27th, along with the final paper. If you want to turn them in earlier, that's fine. And right now, it seems as if Blackboard is working okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Other questions about the assignment?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the syllabus right now, and you have listed 2 chapters in the book for next week. Are those the 2 you want to do for the first?
Oh, yes. Okay, you're talking about the calendar, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the calendar. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So next week's readings for Grobman are social work in a rural school district and employee assistance programs. Those are required readings for next week. However, you do not need to write a paper on those 2. I want to still, next week on the 13th, I would like to have a discussion about social work in a rural community and employee assistance program.
So the last one, so the 7th paper that we had to do the reading, the writings on the readings was due today. So going forward, it's just the 3 additional ones.
That is correct. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, your 7th critical thinking essay was due today. If you turned it in earlier, I actually created those over the weekend just so that I could get caught up. So if you've turned it in, like Sunday night, and I think somebody turned one in today, I went ahead and graded them, and so all you have left are 3 critical thinking essays, the max critical thinking essays, and the social service agency essay.
And those critical thinking essays can be on any chapter.
That's correct. Yes, that's of your choosing. And again, I'll weigh it more heavy on the content. Okay, good. I wrote 70 on Route 7, critical thinking essay on chapter 11. That's fine. Tabby, I saw your chat. Okay. Are there any other questions?
It's me, Flora. I actually have a question.
Yes, Flora.
Now, this final paper work in the social service agency, does that need to be the agency that we volunteered at, or can it be any other one?
Well, to be honest, it could be any other one. So I'm, not.
The reason I ask is because I did mostly reception work, and so I really didn't, I didn't delve into it like working one-on-one with anybody.
Sure.
So I don't feel like I can really write a whole lot about it.
Okay, very good. So yes, I'm happy that it can be on any type of social service agency. That what's up on the screen right now is the general guidelines.
Thank you.
And again, on this one, I think I mentioned. Oh shoot, I don't think I did. Yeah. Oh, reference pages. It's no required number of sources on this agency. I do expect that if you, because you are going to be talking about the mission and purpose, funding, and agency structure, that at minimum, you'll have the website of the organization. That may be where the majority of your information comes from. So just remember, okay, this paper, meaning the work in a social service agency, 4 to 6 pages, will be graded on APA format as well as grammar. So make sure that you know how to cite a website. If you need help on that, Purdue OWL is a good place to go. Or the APA manual. Let's see. Since I'm sharing my screen, how do you spell Purdue? Purdue OWL for the longest time has had a great writing lab. So if you go there, I think it's just owl.purdue, etc. If you roam around in here, you can go to the writing lab site and find information on how to cite things. Okay. I will, let's see, maybe I can do this. And again, it is APA format. Let's see if I can find. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to capture that. Y'all are showing up on my screen, so I'm going to get rid of you for a moment. I'm not seeing anybody for a moment.
I have a quick question and a statement.
Okay. Yes.
So Purdue OWL is a good website, but
Yep.
I have found that the Writing Center, because you can make appointments online, it helps me a little bit more. Sometimes trying to follow the instructions on Purdue OWL gets very confusing, and the Writing Center has helped me understand that a little bit better. I'll just type what I think is the way to do it, and then if they see that it's wrong, they'll go in and show me that it's wrong, why it is, and then they'll reference or send me a link to show me how to do that.
Cool.
And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is there a link to the U of H writing lab where people can do that? Because apparently I don't know how to navigate Purdue OWL to find that.
There is, and I'll get it typed up and then send it over.
Yeah, just put it in the chat. That's
okay.
If you'll put the link in the chat, I'm just going to take this link, and because I am apparently not savvy enough to figure out where all of this stuff is. If any of you know, I'm going to try to put it in the chat. Hello again. Chat. Come There we go. Okay, UHCL. Oh, thank you. I think. Gaspar, are you sharing the link to the my WC online? That's not the right. Is that the Writing Center? I guess you're muted, Gaspar, and I don't see you.
Yeah, that link is to the Writing Center. It's to set an appointment online.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So
I'll unmute, but yeah, that's technically for you to make appointments with the Writing Center. Yes.
Okay. So I apologize that I couldn't find Purdue Al online in the short time that I had, but hey, for those of you who are struggling with APA style, please consider the Writing Center, because that will improve your grade. So. All right. Questions on this final paper? I believe it's worth 15% of your grade. Does that sound right? Why, yes, Dr. Winchell, it does. No.
So I did have a question about this. Earlier when you were talking, you had said something about writing down our experiences and our strengths and weaknesses. And I don't remember a section about strengths and weaknesses. I mean, that's fine. I just don't remember that being on there.
Yeah, that was in the original syllabus.
Okay.
So if you want to add that in the original syllabus, you can, or just go with this format if it's easier, because it only needs to be 4 to 6 pages. So
okay,
you can just follow this format right here and call it a day.
And so the paper is worth 20% or 15%?
20%. I just reconfirmed that up here.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Other questions or comments? All right. I just unmuted you all, and I will mute you all again if we start getting feedback. Of course, actually, apparently some of you have more control than I do. All participants are unmuted. Are y'all like muting yourself right away so you don't? Honey.
On our end, it gives us an option that you want us to unmute, but we can choose not to actually.
Got it.
That option.
Yeah, I thought I had control. I do not have control. Okay.
You have control to ask, apparently.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do, like with Lisa, I can go up here and I can say, ask to start video. She didn't have to start if she didn't want to. Lisa asked her to start video later. Oh, she can chat back to me. Thank you. All right. Gosh. Okay. All right. So we had 2 readings this week, and I have to go back up and if I can close that out. Can I do that? Oh my gosh. Let's see. Oh, there's my PowerPoint. Never mind. Found it. Here we go. Okay, good. It's been a long day, folks. I know it's been a long day for you too. So, to begin with, working with the salt of men. You know, what's interesting is I've been reading. I may have to reformat the way that I do some of my discussion about the assignments that you have. But if I've read the majority of yours who wrote on either assault of men or nursing homes, and it loans itself for a lot more of a deep discussion. So because of this whole experience, I may be reworking the way that I structure classes in the future. So anyway, just a comment. So how many of you enjoyed the reading on assaultive men, working with assaultive men as opposed to nursing homes? Andrew, Kim, James. Oh, somebody. Oh, Grace. Oh, there's Chastity. Okay, tell me about working with assaultive men. How many of you would actually want to do that? No. I think I remember Kim being very verbose about that in her discussion. Or maybe she may have said, I decided not to write on working with assaultive men, period. Use the nursing home one because of that.
I thought it was interesting. Social work, I've learned, this class has taught me social work is just an interesting genre, period. This particular one I wrote on, to me, to a certain degree, the social workers seem to be a little naive. This might be short-sighted, but it seemed to be a little naive in where he was going and what he was doing. He was treating it more like a class per se and wanting the officers or whatever, you guys need to be nicer. I mean, these are people that, yes, they're people, but they're there for a reason. And I think he failed to look at it in the perspective of those who work there every day, every hour. Because he was like, I would rather you guys, not be so, smile. And this is my livelihood. Do you understand? This is like a fit of the lions in here. You don't come here smile. I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, be respectful, because they're still, everyone is still human beings. They're there for a reason, but just for a mistaken time, we got that. But it's a whole lifestyle in there. And I think to a certain degree, when I read it, I was like, it's evident you don't understand. This is like real life in here. But it was right.
Kim, thank you.
And I think Kim had a good point about there being a new, like, kind of a lifestyle that happens in prison that I can imagine as a social worker would be a hard, I guess, avenue to navigate, because it's like you're there trying to make a change in these people's lives, and I can imagine it's hard, because they're there all the time and they don't get to leave. And I don't know, I can just imagine that it's really difficult to navigate the whole, I guess, systematic and very rigid format of prison, and to try and like introduce people to change, especially whenever they're in this environment that isn't really conducive to change, I feel like.
Well stated, Grace. Thanks.
I thought it was interesting that when he was talking about the group dynamics and sharing issues, and he mentioned that it was difficult, even more so on the inside, for them to share about issues, because they needed to lean on one another as a group, because they're dealing with these issues in a very isolated environment. They were very on their own. And so, they were talking about when they were talking about dealing with the issues that one of the inmates was talking about the demise of his relationship with his wife and his children. They were supporting one another because he was in there and he had the oversight in that very isolated environment. So I thought that was interesting. They were banding together rather than tearing one another apart.
To be honest, I heard about 1/3 of that. So a lot of feedback, but I think I got what you were saying, and it had to do with the actual guys in the group and how they interacted with each other, and then so beyond group, can they continue to do that?
Right, and I was also saying it's like the very isolated environment that they have to lean on one another. Yeah.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. Other comments?
What I liked about the story and why I chose to write about it is the very end, like this very last big paragraph. when he talks about, he says that I don't just see criminals and how they need to change. I wonder about our social, economic, and political system. And that's what I think about. And I think that a lot of social workers see that. We don't just see like they're criminals and they made bad decisions. I mean, yeah, obviously they become criminals and they have made bad decisions, but that doesn't, I don't believe that it just happens. I think that we become a product of our environment and the things that happen to us. And yeah, we can make choices. I understand that to a degree. I mean, if you were raised in poverty, you only know poverty. I mean, sometimes that's just kind of how it happens. You get stuck there. And I'm not just saying, being a criminal just comes from poverty. I'm just talking about sometimes it's hard for people to break out of certain things. And I think that he really understood that. And I like how he had talked about in Canada, they imprison more people than most industrial countries in the world. I never knew that. I had just assumed everybody in Canada gets along and everybody's happy and there's no prisons, because in my mind, Canada is like this peaceful place. But anyways, I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good. All right, I just realized that I'm an advertisement for Just Mercy. This movie is getting ready to come out. I read recently I went to Alabama, and I visited a lynching museum and ran across this author who wrote Just Mercy. I highly, highly recommend it. Basically, what has happened in the Black community is we stopped lynching people of color and started putting them in prison, putting them on death row. Not necessarily, and it's just mercy. We've been putting people in jail because of their color. We've been putting more young Black males in prison and giving them, and at the time, giving them death sentences, as opposed to white males and white females and Black females. And so the prison system has become, it is a very unjust system. So I really, really appreciate what you have to say, Anna, because it is so true. The statistics just bear it out. When you run an analysis, statistically, there are more people of color in prison than the white population. And so it is, statistically, it's proven, and it's an unjust system. So environment makes a big difference. So one of the things that was mentioned that I really heard loud and clear, and it started with Kim when she talked about some of the social work being a bit naive. And I would venture to guess that the majority of very professional social workers really aren't that naive. It doesn't come across that way. Trust me. When I worked in the juvenile justice system, and I was working with juvenile delinquents who were picked up, they did an intake, and then they released them. And I would get with officers, and they would say, "You all, you're doing the wrong thing." And it's like, I'm not even going to take this kid into custody because it doesn't make a difference. And I said, well, let me give you a different perspective. As a social worker in this system, the more times that a kid gets an intake, I can use that to lock them up. And they didn't realize that. So it was like, if you want to put boundaries around these kids, you have to continue to do this. And so even though it looks as if, oh, we're naive, I would venture to guess that those who are really professional recognize that we have to kind of go to a different area, because the workers in the prison are so hardcore. It's like they cannot see any dignity or worth, and they have to do that for their own survival. And I think the perspective that social work does bring into it is, I think they recognize, yes, everybody needs to be accountable. And we know they assaulted these women, and you know what, the therapy that we're giving, the group that we're doing, it is helping. Don't know that that is an actual solution. When they get back into their new environment they had before, and social workers would bear this out. It's like, oh, you get right back into that environment again. Yeah, you will. All that you learned in group is not going to work anymore. And we know that, but we're trying to fight for at least give them some kind of dignity and worth.
Professor, I just wanted to put in that I was agreeing with what you were saying, how the justice system was putting a lot of a higher number of colored people into prison and taking advantage of this. I actually am taking a prison and society class, and there were statistics saying that in 2008, 1 in 15 Black men over the age of 18 were incarcerated versus 1 in 106 of a white man being incarcerated.
Yep. Thank you.
Professor, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Twofold. One, I can appreciate social workers across the gamut. And again, I just learned something new, that social workers are like an onion of the whole system. When you were just talking about the cop saying, man, forget it, they're going to do the same thing, why arrest them? That need to go through the process, I'm sure some kids need to understand, okay, this is the action, we're going to keep going this way. You want to keep doing this, we're going to keep doing it. So I can appreciate that in social work. For this particular article, I thought this particular guy was here. That's just one thing. So that's fine. Yeah. Secondly, when you visited Alabama, the thing, was that the first time it really kind of clicked for you that this was a cycle in the Black culture?
No, absolutely not. No, in fact, I was in my MSW program. There was a woman who was studying the. So back this, I've had my degree 20 years, something like that. I've had my MSW for about 20 years. No, back when I had my MSW, there were studies showing that exact same thing. So I've known it.
Gotcha.
What happened in Alabama is, it was one of the most moving experiences I've ever had.
Wow.
To be honest, okay, it was very, very emotional for me because of several things, and the biggest thing was I recognize my privilege. I really, really do. And I went there with a group of people from Community Schools National who are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm the only white male in the committee. And when I went through the Lynch Museum, it tore my heart out because what happens is there are these metal boxes hanging it's all outside. It's a museum outside. And these boxes are hanging up, and on them are every county in the United States. And so I went to Tulsa County, where I grew up, and I saw all of the names of people who were lynched back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And I'm walking around this museum, and it dawns on me that these things that are hanging from the wall are actually coffins. And so, I mean, it hit me emotionally, just from an architectural standpoint. But then one of the things I saw was, it was like, I was born in 1959, and there were people being lynched in the early 1950s. And I went to, and when I left the museum, I went across, and they had like 3 final graves and monuments for these people, and there were 3 people who were lynched in 1959. I was born in early 1959, so they were, and so I mentioned that as being one of my most emotional moments, recognizing that this is it's not history for me. It's part of what I grew up with, the lynching.
Interesting.
I mentioned that, however, I came to a realization about a month later as I was contemplating this. It's like, you are so damn privileged, Winchell. You see that it only happened in 1959. It's happening today. The lynching, you're not making the connection. The lynching continues. There are people dying on death row because they're Black. And so, it really, really opened my soul up to recognize that I have to do what I can. I'm 61 this year. I'm 61 this year, and I really feel that what happened in Alabama, it was less than a year ago, it was like, okay, this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing, this is what the rest of my life has to be about, making sure that happens. So
that is so cool. This is, I know everyone's on here. My bad, we're having a moment, but when my children were little, my husband's family is from Columbus, Texas. Columbus, Texas has a hanging tree. It's considered a historical marker. So when my children were little, they need to know this is a part of history. You can actually take them downtown and see how beautiful. You would not know. I'm sure if that tree told stories, it would tell you a lot of stories. But it's a beautiful old, hanging branches, beautiful tree. That's called a hanging tree in Columbus, Texas today.
Professor, I wanted to share something because I know this is probably the last few times that we're going to be discussing the readings.
Yeah.
So going back to, the whole connection that you did with what you visit over in Alabama. When reading these stories, it just kind of reminded me of a situation where I was thinking about joining the military, and I was like indecisive, like, do I join, do I not? And I spoke to one of my good friends who was in the Air Force, and she said, you know what, the decision maker should be do it for the right reasons. Remember why you're doing it and why you want to do it. And that made me realize that I didn't want to do it for the right reasons, so I didn't join the military. So reading these stories kind of makes me realize, like, if this is really what I want to do, and it is, it made me realize that social work is something that I want to pursue through the readings, because it's ultimately, I feel like I'm doing it for the right reasons.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And at the risk of actually crying, it's like when I started working with juvenile delinquents is when I understand, yes, I'm in the right field. I'm doing this because I have something I can contribute. But it took, even in my 60s, it's like, I have to continue to fight for social justice. I have to, because there is so much inequity going on here in the U.S. and beyond. And
I'm sorry, I just have to say, like, yes, like, I totally agree with you. Like, it's outrageous, and people are not awake and aware to it.
And I've been aware, since I started working with juvenile delinquents, but then it just comes in, it knocks me in the middle of my eyes, and actually it hit me in the heart, very, very, very deep. So yes, this is what social work is about. So,
I just wanted to say that, well, I actually didn't read, well, I didn't write about this one. I wrote about the other one, the nursing home. But I agree with Judy a lot about, this is what social work is about. It's not only the community, it's also you're changing people's life when you do this, because this is a commitment that you take from now on to your last day, because you're not only doing it for the sake of I'm doing my job, is you're doing it so people can have a better life.
Yep.
And by helping someone, you can help, I don't know, I might say 20, 30 people. in a daily basis, you'll be surprised how many people you can help. Even right now, I mean, just by extending your hand and saying, okay, I want to help you, I want to, go ahead and give you supplies that you need, you're changing people's lives because they're needed right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you're understanding what I'm trying to say, but it's really sometimes we think we're not doing that much, and we are.
Yep. Yep. And I know you are. And that's why we continued, I continue to say, hey, we have these 6 social work values, and you know what? You do not have to believe in them, but please, if you don't believe in them, do not get into this profession. You don't belong. You have to live these. I mean, and that's why the readings, the days in lives of social worker are so so important, is and why I bring in guest speakers, because I know when you see those people speaking, and when you're actually reading this deeply, it's like, yeah, this is a little bit more. This is not just a job. This is a vocation, if you will. People are called to it. So. All right. Okay, something on a little bit more lighter note. Let's talk about nursing homes and the injustices that happen in nursing homes. Wait, actually, before we leave that, one of the things that I will say is this whole having to stay home has brought to light even more injustices. And if I mentioned this last week, I apologize, but one of the things that I recognized, the privilege I really recognized, and actually now that I think about it, is it only happened this last weekend, and that is when it comes to Zoom meetings. We had a impromptu meeting with my family, and we all got on Zoom. Or actually, we got on WebEx because my son Matthew said WebEx is better. So what happened on our meeting was that, because Jeremiah, remember, he used to work for Yahoo, now he works for Splunk, so he is a computer geek. Matthew used to work for Google, and now he works for a startup company. So the two of them started playing, and so as we're on our WebEx meeting like this, Jeremiah's picture shows up 2 different times. So he's on there 3 times. And then Matthew did the same. And so I said, I know what y'all are doing. So I did the same. I got on my phone, I got on my regular computer, I got on my laptop, and I got on my iPad. And as I'm doing this and talking about, hey, yeah, I'm working with these kids, and we're really trying to find some way to get a hold of them, because frankly, they don't have internet access. Some of them don't have computers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It brought to light how so privileged I really am, and then inequity that is occurring with our being isolated. So with those families who all, and it includes some of my staff even, it's like, yeah, we're struggling because we have 1 computer in the house. And it's like, I'm sorry, you got 1 computer in the house? Are you kidding me? I've got a desktop and a laptop and an iPad and a phone. So it's like, and so even with my staff, there is diversity there. And but with our kids, it's so profound. Some of the kids that we're working with in the San Leone area don't even have the ability to get internet. So it just brings up more and more of the inequity when it comes, especially with economics. So I'll get off that for a while. No, I'll get back on my soapbox all the time. So thank you for bringing that out in me, folks. All right, nursing homes. So speak up if you wrote about nursing homes because you didn't want to write about us working with assaulted men in the criminal justice system. No one? Y'all did some.
Okay, I wrote about the nursing homes. I really liked the story that the lady told. I'm very close with my elders, I mean, my grandma passed away, but you know, like her relatives, her sister, like my great aunts and stuff like that, they're still around. So the thing I really liked was that she said that that she has like a, a lecture called Young at Heart, and she says that the lecture provides an opportunity for cultural and educational stimulation. And I really like that she still included that with these seniors, because it's really important. You know, you got to keep your brain working. You know, you can't just think, oh, they're seniors, just let them be to themselves and stuff like that. It's very important to keep them interacting with each other to keep that stimulation.
Very good. Thank you, Jessica.
Some people put their reactions in the chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And I saw that a lot in your papers. And this is from Jackie. I'm sorry, Jarvey. Yeah, I felt really overwhelmed for her because of all the things she had to do while at work. But I admire the fact that she enjoyed your job, and that's oftentimes that's kind of a theme that runs through the days in the lives of social workers. Also, is you go, oh my God, they're doing so much, but they thoroughly enjoy it, and the reason they do so much is they're really dedicated to their job.
I also wrote on the topic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because I take care of my older parents, and I would like for them to go when it's time to go into a home, if they do, to go where I'm very active and involved. So I really like the fact that she said how she initially couldn't stand the scent or the smell of the facility, but she overlooked it once she realized the connection that she had and the relationship that she built, not only with the residents, but with the families of the residents. That really resonated with me. And it just made me reflect on the overall social work, how we kind of have to deny ourselves sometimes to make sure that we make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, very good. That great point too. And that. Go ahead, Chastity.
I chose to write on the topic as well. At first, it was hard because I felt myself thinking like the coworkers in the story, like, okay, well, what is it that she really does? But it brought back a lot of memories for me because as a kid, we would go to the nursing homes once a month or whatever, and to see how their faces would just light up just to see like the children run around. We would bring like our coloring books and simple things or whatever that you think that they wouldn't want to do. And it was just time for us, and they would tell us stories and stuff like that. So the reading itself brought back a lot of childhood memories for me. We would bake them cookies and treats and stuff like that. Some they weren't supposed to have, but if you liked the person, you would just sneak them one or whatever and say, "Don't tell," whatever. But the reading was it brought back memories for me.
Very good, thank you.
So I wrote about this one because my grandpa lives next door, and I have to take care of him very often. I'm mostly in the house because I'm working from home now. I'm one of the few in my family who have the privilege to work from home now.
Yeah.
So I take care of him a lot, and these past few days I did realize that when you're home alone and you want to be independent, it's really hard to just not being there for them. And at the end of the day, they need you, and then you soon enough you realize you need someone to be there for you. And it just moved my soul just to see how social work can really change their life, not just because they're helping you, but because you're helping them to be more flexible and independent as they're trying to overachieve their goals and stuff, but trying to be independent and stuff.
Very good, thank you, Gaspar.
Mm-hmm.
I also read about it and wrote about it.
And what I got from it was that since she first talked about the policies on how many social workers are required for however many beds in a facility, and whenever she said she was the only social worker on this facility that has 120 beds, it just shows that. And she even said that she didn't have anybody who told her exactly what to do. She just do what has to be done. So it shows how flexible you must be. Also, you have to learn how to adapt in any environment. And really what hit me was whenever she said you have to kind of help other people cope with their grief while you're suffering your own, since you also got attached to them. So it just shows how really strong of a person you have to be to become a social worker.
Very good. Yeah, I thought a lot of you wrote about this, the the challenges of people not, especially in nursing homes, not knowing what your role is. And nursing homes are probably, there is a major piece there, but there are a lot of, just in the medical profession even, a lot of people don't know what the social worker's role is. And I think in the nursing homes, one of the issues is that there is a law that if you have over 150 beds, it is required that you do have a social worker in the facility. And so administration is like, okay, well, we need to have a social worker because that's the requirement. Now you figure out what you're supposed to do. It shouldn't be that way. And we're getting better. And we have to get better because we have a growing population, like my generation. We're getting older, and the nursing homes are growing and growing and growing. So we need to be very specific in the whole study of geriatrics, especially in the social work field, is getting into here specifically what social workers should be doing. And it is dealing with a lot of death and dying, but also there are very specific things that we need to do in getting family connected to the elderly and making sure that they do have support. Good point. Thank you. Other comments? Alyssa wrote, or did I say this already? I like the reason that she got into social work. Listening to the stories of the residents, you could tell that she really enjoyed it. Yep. Other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much. We have 25 people on. Let's see if am I missing anybody. I am going to share my screen again because we're moving into the point now where you get to hear some lecture from me. But trust me, it's not going to be long. I'm just going to kind of float through this because y'all just drained me with that last discussion. So, but I appreciate it, and I think you know why I do social work. So now that I jump into this, I'm going to go, oh yeah, this is kind of boring stuff. But you know what? You gotta do it. And this is why I teach too. So, oh, there we go. Y'all can see my screen, right? Yeah, okay, I'm going to see a couple shaking hands. So the people appearing are like James, Rose, Andrew, and support. Who's support? What's your name? Do you remember your name, support? Jessica, right?
It's Judy. I can't change it.
Oh, you're Judy. You can't change it? Okay. If you go in the top right, yeah, okay. So in the top right, there are 3 dots. Do you see that? Just shake your head, yes or no. No? Oh, in the top right of your screen, there should be 3 dots, and what will drop down are several things: unmute video, stop video, chat, rename, etc. when you see rename, you can click on that and rename.
You know, normally rename is there, but I don't see it. Right now, it only says mute, stop, pin, or hide self view. Those are the only options I have.
Same thing's happening with me, Floor.
Okay, never mind. I can change mine. There you go. See, I'm privileged. You see my name says I can change mine, so sorry, I wish you could change yours. Maybe it's because I have control. This is the only control I have. I can't mute you or anything.
Can you change my name?
Pardon me?
Can you change my name for me?
Wow, I can. Oh my God, well, wait, maybe not. Enter a new screen name. So what would you like your screen name to be?
Judy's fine.
That's a dad joke. Get it?
Perfect.
Wow, cool. I'm glad I have.
There.
So is everybody in chat going, hey, change my name for me? And you spell it I-E, don't you? Is it J-U-D-I-E? Or does it matter?
Yeah, no, that's what it is. You're right. That's how she spells it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tabitha put on the chat that she wants you to change hers to Tabby.
I love it. Well, I got
I really wanted to say, hey, Jude, but I wanted to be professional.
I would, okay, I would so,
Nice.
I would so go after that. There's Tabby. Okay, Tabitha. T-A-B-B-Y. I can't, you don't have a, so I'm going to just, I.
No, it's T-A-I, yes.
There you go. Yeah. I'm not easily distracted, am I? All right, anyone else want to change? Oh.
I was just thinking you have to be the coolest grandpa to be around.
Right. Oh, how funny. Okay. All right. Okay, are we ready for lecture? Let's do it. And if I fly through this, I apologize. This has been a good discussion. I really appreciate the group that is this cohort here. Y'all have been a wonderful class, and we got 25 people online. So, yay, go team. Okay, so today's chapter is about families, or about children, youth, and families. And so if you think about it, family is that one thing that really makes a big influence on our life. So it has the biggest impact on our life, and that's family described however you describe it. And I will apologize up front. One of the things that I'm going to do as I lecture is I'm going to talk about a very typical family, or possibly an atypical family. And as I go through the family life cycle, I'm talking about a heterosexual male, heterosexual woman who get married and they have 4 children. I may later talk about the 6 grandchildren that they have, but of course, this relates to me. I am talking about a typical family, but please recognize in that family is so diverse, especially in the world that we live in right now. But all families have transformation over their lives, and I want to talk about that. It's going to be a very generic, basically man and a woman and kids. But do know that I recognize that there are so many different ways of defining family, and that's intergenerational, families growing up in foster care, families of lesbian and gay couples, But as I go through this, again, I'm going to apologize up front if I sound like it's like, oh, yep, there was that white heterosexual male privileged talking about, the typical family. I'll apologize up front for that. So, but do know, as I think you all know, that family has such an impact. So this is going to be one of the questions on the test. And so please get into the chat and give me your answers to this simple question. The question is, what social system has more impact on an individual than any other system throughout the life cycle? And I'm going to go to the chat, if I can find it now. More. I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people responding in the chat. 9. Everybody needs to respond if you can get there. What social system has more impact on an individual than any other system throughout the life cycle? You better be answering the right way too. Good. So now some of you are just reading the answers and no, kidding. All right, thank you. That is correct. So that's worth like 2 points on your test. Yay, team. I know you get it. All right. So we're going to talk about the family life cycle, and I'll just start off with, as I describe the family life cycle, I'm going to talk about, of course, my life, because I'm the professor, I'm privileged, and I guess I have some narcissistic tendencies, and this class is about me, right? But also, it's what I know. It's what my family knows. So I'm Peter Winchell. I'm as an unattached adult, that's how the family begins, an individual. And for me, it was Peter Winchell. Growing up in several states, I was born in Pittsburgh, moved to California, moved to Michigan, moved to Tulsa, et cetera, et cetera. So I was an unattached adult until I met another woman. And in the chat, does anybody remember what that woman's name is that I met, that I began a family with? And if I haven't said her name well enough, then I need to say it. Okay, good. Whew, that was a close one. I have mentioned Debbie a lot. Yes, okay. So the first part of the cycle is an unattached adult. What would you say, and go into the chat again, so I met Debbie, and so what part of the life cycle is that? What would you consider that? And it could be named by a couple names, but so first part of my life is unattached adult. What's the second part? Marriage, courtship, dating. Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Y'all got it. Oh, attached adult. I like that. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe we could start a new theory that says the second part of the cycle is from unattached adult to attached adult. I like that. But I'll give you the reference from where this family life cycle came from. I think the last name was Goldberg, but I'll try to find that later for you. I know you all are really interested in my citing where this family life cycle came from, but you begin with an unattached adult, then you have courtship and marriage. For me, does anybody want to guess when that courtship took place? What year? First, the courtship, because I had a 5-year courtship, and then Debbie and I got married. So see if you can do the math. Give me in the chat room, just because you're entertaining me, and I'm trying to keep you all occupied and engaged. When did Peter begin his courtship with Debbie, and when did they get married? A guess on year. Grace, 75. Okay, we've got 1975, 1982. Wow, you all think I'm really old, don't you? 5.5 years. Oh, 5.5 years. I did date Debbie for 5.5 years. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Kim has 79 or 80. Lisa says 75. Grace, 75. 82, 1975. That's tough, 1989. Why? Because you have to do the math? Okay. All right. So, you know, I was trying to lead you all astray. Debbie and I started dating in 1974, and we got married in 1979. So, so let's see a show of hands. How many people were even born in 1979? Okay, so I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Oops, sorry, never mind. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. I just shouldn't have done that, sorry. Now people are going into the chat. Let's see. Oops, okay. So, 1986, yep, okay. So, Debbie and I was an unattached adult. The second part of the life cycle is courtship or marriage or long-term relationship. Getting together with a significant other. What would be the next step in this family life cycle, typically? In the chat, please. What happens? Children, kids, having kids, yes, absolutely. All right, bonus points, although really, you know, it doesn't, yeah, having a baby, exactly. Bonus points. Who was the first child that came by? She was born actually in 1980. I'm talking about, of course, me. Does anybody remember the name of the, yes, that doctor, it's the doctor. Does anybody know her actual name? It does start with a D. Luna's mom, no. Very good, Judy. No, oh, okay, somebody got it. Okay, Jennifer got it. Debbie, Deidre, yeah, and Grace got it also. Luna's mom is Erica. Erica's the youngest. So Erica was born like in 86 or something like that. And Deidre was born in, let's see, yeah, Deidre was born in 1980. The spelling is not correct, but Grace is closer. It's D-I-E-D-R-A. But it's Deidre Deanne Winchell. So very good, thank you. So yes, the answer is having children. But specifically, part of the life cycle is care of young children, because then you have another life cycle that occurs after that. And so in the chat, what happens after care of young children? And then we're going to talk about the difference between these two. Never sleeping again. Care of older children, very good. Teenagers, yes, very good. Teens, yep, absolutely. That is the other piece of that, and I want to chat about this, raising adolescents. So why would we try to distinguish between care of young adults and care of adolescents? Let's start with care of young children. Between courtship and marriage, and then care of young children, what happens there with the care of young children? What are some issues that people are going through? And somebody already listed one, and I can't get back up to the chat. Somebody had already listed one. What are some of the, okay, okay. Anna, got it, okay. Never sleeping again. So what occurs with raising young children? Learning to be selfless and thinking of others. Very good. Stress, absolutely. Okay, so what's the difference in the stress? Postpartum depression, very good, thank you, Maria. Teaching them right from wrong. What is the main difference between raising young children and raising adolescents? What do you think the difference is? Puberty, maturity? For the parents themselves, what are they experiencing? What's the different stress that the caring of young children is over the raising of adolescents? Adolescents have a set mindset, more freedom for the adolescents, correct? Consistence, not being listened to, conflict of thoughts. Adolescents want to be independent. Good, absolutely. So what I see in these two differences, the main differences here, is that caring for young children, your stress, the anxiety that families are going through is a physical stress. With adolescence, it becomes an emotional stress. And for any of you who have teenagers, you know the difference. When we had 4 young kids, we were just physically exhausted. When they became adolescents, it became an emotional piece. Debbie and I were very fortunate in that there were 2 parents in the home, and Debbie and I, at the time that we had, or just prior to adolescence for the first 2 kids, is we were working with juvenile delinquents. So our adolescents couldn't get away with crap. It's like, we've seen this before. We know how kids are manipulative. We know how you're going to pit mom and dad against each other. So as you can probably tell from Debbie's, just from the way that Peter Winchell talks, that Debbie and I were always talking about and trying to be on the same page as with each other on how we were raising our kids. So we agreed on a lot. My kids are like emailing me now, so I should turn this off. I apologize. So, okay, so that's the 4th part of the cycle. What happens after raising adolescents? What's the next stage? Just throw it in the chat. Come on, Jack, come on up. Getting them out. I like that. Letting them go. Very good. Leaving the nest. Yep. Empty nest. Correct. Said a nicer way by Goldbridge, I think is his name, it is the empty nest. It is launching the children. And I'll get that out of there. Okay. Launching children. Debbie and I, the funny story is, so we had 4 kids. Deidre, the oldest, I think, she was the hero. Jeremiah, he was our scapegoat. He always got in trouble, but he was the oldest boy. Matthew, who was the mascot and always joked, he was the last to go. Erica left a little bit earlier, but Matthew was one of the last to go. And that was just about 15 years ago. He was the smartest one, though, because what happened was Matthew left about the time that we were building a new house. So he was hung around. So we kind of said, okay, we're leaving. But the one thing that we did, and our kids love this, is they grew up in an 1,100 square foot house. That's from Deidre being in 5th grade to her graduating, and then everybody graduating. And so they grew up in this 1,100 square foot house, the 6 of us. And when we moved, when we launched Matthew, the last of the kids, we moved into a 2,500 square foot house. And the reason being is we knew that we would have a bunch of grandkids. And so our house has become the party house. The house that we moved into, and this is my own office. You like my office? The thing that we told them is, okay, so we're moving into what some people call a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. But what we called it was a 2-bedroom, 2-office house. It's like, and the other bedroom is a guest bedroom. It was like, we're moving out. You are welcome to stay for a little bit, but don't stay for a long time. We did have one come back for a little bit, and so she and the grandkids stayed with us for a while. Because we did have a 2,500 square foot house. They stayed for about 1.5 years, and then we launched them again. But our house has become the house where everybody goes for a party. So what's the last stage of the life cycle? In the chat, please. After launching children. And this is where Debbie and I are heading. Correct. Not retired yet, but Debbie is retired. Retirement, yeah. We call it later life. Debbie and I are moving into our later life. And I think that's why it had to do with the fact that I was 60 years old, but also it had to do with the fact that I went to Alabama at a time where I was trying to figure out when will I retire? So this whole later life thing is going, okay, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? And part of the legacy I want to leave is I want people to say, man, he was all about social justice and equity, and he really fought for that. So there's my story on later life. Questions on the family life cycle? Okay, I'm going to move us on relatively quickly, simply because the family life cycle is going to be on the test. This next section is not, but I want us to touch on it a bit. The reason I continue to talk about the family life cycle is that as social workers, you're going to be intervening in different stages of the life cycle for people that you're working with. So I want you to keep in mind, when you're working with unattached adults, they have different issues than people who are raising adolescents. A family that's raising adolescents are dealing with emotional stuff that an unattached adult isn't. People in later life are contemplating things like, what will my legacy be? You know, what am I going to leave? Launching children is it's going to be couples who are grieving their kids leaving and then having to readjust to being just with each other again. So we intervene at several different areas. The thing is that typical families go through these life cycles, but it becomes harder when you're dealing with things like financial resources, when you're struggling financially, when you don't have the right social support, and when you don't have good physical or mental health. So this is where social workers intervene. And a couple of the different, yes, I'm sorry. Jennifer, I see that you have your hand raised. Jennifer raised hand.
That's great. I didn't do it on purpose.
Oh, okay. That was a nice distraction.
Good. Nope, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay. So prior to, I really honestly feel like I want to just move through some of this other section. It's not going to be on the test, but I'm just going to rapidly go through this and then get to some of the things that will be on the test and then call it a night, because I'm emotionally drained right now. Y'all emotionally drained me, which is a good thing. Some of the things that we do with social work is we place families within cultural context, within legal status. So, one of the things that we're doing right now is we are working with, meaning communities and schools. Communities and schools right now works with a lot of families who are undocumented. So during these times, when there is isolation, their fear is going out the roof, because right now we're making it's very difficult for people who are here legally just to get services. The individuals who are afraid of possibly being deported, although the borders are closed, they're going through other issues. And then availability of resources, we've talked a lot about that, the whole issue of equity. So this is the context in which we're working with families. And as you know, there are several different family situations that are going to look different. As you know, Peter Winchell is not only very privileged with having been married to somebody for almost 42 years, well, be 42 years in June, and raised 4 great kids who have raised 6 great grandchildren. I am both privileged to do that, but also blessed to do that. I've never had to experience within my own family divorce and separation, step parenting, single parenting. If you're a single parent, God bless you. I don't know how you have the energy to do that. I always recognize that Debbie and I raising young kids and adolescents. There were two of us to handle everything. We could tag team parent. And so if you're a single parent, my hat's off to you. My honor goes to you. Gay and lesbian parenting, that comes with its own issues. Kids raised in a gay or lesbian household suffer no more physical, mental issues than kids raised in heterosexual couples. They do experience things like bullying, things like that. That still does exist within our schools. And then when there's substance abuse in the home or family violence, these are things that we have to deal with as social workers. And it makes family situations that much more difficult. Questions? Because I'm going to just flip right by all of these things to get to something that is on the test. Unmute yourself if you have questions. Okay. Here are some issues for divorce and separation. Those are on the PowerPoint. They will not be part of the test, but I'd like you to just contemplate that. Step parenting, some other issues that go along with it. Single parenting, again, my hat's off to you. PowerPoint are both on Blackboard and on drpeter.com, drpeterw.com. Okay. Two things, and we're getting close to ending. Yeah, I just have some terminology that I want you to know that revolves around family and revolves around child protective services. So two things two pieces of legislation that happened around family violence, and two things that I'd like you to know about because they have helped fund several different social service agencies. There's two of these pieces of legislation. First, the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act and the Violence Against Women Act. First, the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act of 1974 actually is what helped establish CPS. Prior to this, actually beginning in 1968, there was this thing called child abuse that was really kind of strange to people in the 60s. What is that all about? It wasn't until 1974 that we actually established a child protective service agencies. So I do want you to know this. It wasn't until 1974, actually. Okay, in the chat. What else happened in 1974? Quick, to the chat. I'm just making this connection. What else happened in 1974 that has to do with Peter Winchell? Besides your welcome. Let's see. The Child Abuse Prevention Treatment Act of 1974. No, it's close. Marriage was 1974. I mean 79. You dated Debbie. Yeah. Okay. So Andrew got it. Thank you. Sorry. There. At least I had your attention for a moment. Okay. So, in addition to Debbie and I starting to date in 1974, it was when Debbie and I started dating that the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act finally came to fruition. So CPSs were formed then. Then in 1994, the Violence Against Women Act was created, and this helped really establish some of the different shelters. Bay Area Turning Point was established right around 1993, I think. They may have established a little bit earlier than that, but they started getting funding from the government because it wasn't until 1994 that we recognized that there was a lot of domestic violence going on. And even though there is, and I think Bay Area Turning Point, the speaker that came out said, yes, there are men who are abused too. The reality is, because of the power differential, women are abused more often than men. And so the Violence Against Women Act was established in 1994. questions on that? These are two things that will be on the test.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there, well, what is there like a specific social work term for child abuse? Like a definition?
Yes, and that is, I think this might be the next slide. Nice transition, thank you. Was that Tabby?
No, Jessica.
Oh, Jessica, thank you, Jessica. Yes, actually, and it's called child maltreatment. Yes, will these acts be in the exam? Yes, they will be. Good, good question, Grace. And yes, they will be. All right, so, okay, wait a minute. I'm trying to go to my next slide. Jessica Rogina raised hand. Did you raise your hand on purpose, Jessica?
I raised it earlier, but I think I tried to lower it right now.
Okay, all right. So, okay, so somebody was asking the question about child abuse. The definitions of child abuse. Really, in social work, we talk about child maltreatment because there are 4 different categories of child maltreatment. So, without giving them up, and some of you may have you actually may be looking at this PowerPoint in PDF format. In the chat, please tell me what 4 categories of child maltreatment you think there are. Far away. Yes, physical abuse is one, mental abuse is another, and sexual, correct. All right, they've all been named. Bullying, no, bullying is not specifically child maltreatment. But thank you, Gaspar. Neglect, correct. Okay, y'all got him. Okay. Okay, so, and yes, this will be on the test. Specifically, what are the 4 categories of child maltreatment? And so I want you to distinguish between these because CPS deals with all 4 of these. Mostly they deal with the top 3. They actually don't do a lot of work with psychological or emotional abuse because that is so difficult to prove or to acknowledge, and typically children are not taken away from a family, or CPS doesn't intervene because of psychological abuse. But physical abuse, definitely. And it wasn't until the 1960s that we actually defined physical abuse. Prior to 1960, if a child was abused, you actually had to go to the laws protecting animals. Answer is yes, we do have to study all 4. So I want you to know all 4 categories of child maltreatment. I'm going to ask somebody else to look at the chat. If you see something in the chat and think it needs to be drawn to my attention, please let me know. And we are almost through. We're almost through. But there are 4 categories of child maltreatment. First is physical abuse, which is what, when we talk about CPS, we typically think of either physical abuse or sexual abuse. But to be honest, a huge category of child maltreatment that actually is reported by CPS and sometimes acted upon is child neglect. And children are taken out of homes, definitely for physical abuse, definitely for sexual abuse, but it also occurs with child neglect. And that is when a parent is not taking care of the appropriate physical needs of a child or of children. The unfortunate thing about child neglect is that when you really dive into child neglect, it is an issue of a underlying problem. In the chat, what do you think that underlying issue really is when it comes to child neglect? It's a social issue. I love that. What was the majority he said? My interest was lagging. Thank you, Jessica. Oh, okay. So my question is, child neglect. The definition is a failure of a caregiver to provide needed, age-appropriate care, although financially capable. What is the real issue of child neglect? Poverty and money. Absolutely correct. Yeah. The studies actually do bear that out. And shoot, I keep doing this. Not providing. Yeah. Okay. The issue of child neglect is typically an issue of money and of poverty. And so when CPS goes to a home where kids aren't being taken care of because the household doesn't have food in it, kids aren't properly dressed, that has to do with finances. Okay? Keep that in mind.
I have a quick question.
Sure. Yes.
But it says, although financially capable.
Correct.
Can you explain that? Because when I read that, I thought it meant
Yeah.
even though they're capable financially to do it, they're still not.
And that's, okay, that is the actual definition of when a parent would be charged with child neglect because they're financially capable of doing that.
Got it. Okay, got it.
However, what happens within the system is we use our own middle class judgment on what parents should be doing. And so that financially capable does not get recognized. CPS will intervene in homes, pull kids out when an easier solution or would be to provide them the appropriate finances to get them food on their table. And we don't. That financially capable is by law what CPS needs to be doing in pulling kids out of a home.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And one of the things that does happen with CPS is it takes a long while for somebody to actually be charged with child neglect. And so CPS can intervene and say, we believe that this family is neglecting the child and could financially be capable of doing that. So they intervene, pull the kids out. And so the intervention oftentimes comes too quickly. All right. Okay, I'm going to move on. I see dead faces here. So, okay, so for the test, know the 4 categories of child maltreatment, and then we have 4 categories of sexual abusers. In the chat box, tell me what you think the 4 categories of sexual abusers are. Family definitely is one. Dad, stepdad's great. You're getting there. Family, friends, very good. Environment, uncle, yep. Strangers, very good. I think you got them all. Oh, you may not have had that one. You may, yeah, I had family, friends, okay. These specifically are the different types of categories of sexual abuse. Parents, family members, trusted adults, and strangers. What do you guess I'll answer your question in a little bit, Gaspar. What would you guess? How would these be in priority? Which occur most? Parents, family members, trusted adults, or strangers? In the chat box, or raise your hand and just say family members, trusted adults. Gaspar, not sure. Parents. The answer is yes, family members. When, one of the shows that I really like a lot is Criminal Minds. And when they show, because they do all these really crazy things and they'll abduct strangers, that does not happen a lot. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but strangers are the most unlikely to sexually abuse children. It is trusted adults, family members, and parents. So family members is the number one. Okay. Thank you. I'm moving on. I have 2 more definitions and then we'll be through. Ready to move on? Yeah.
Sure. I just want to say that that's because I'm in another social work class, ODSJ, and one topic we were talking about this semester was the whole gender neutral restroom and how people came out with these very bizarre ads showing strangers that's the top suspect. So it's very surprising to actually learn that that's one of the later suspects actually.
Yeah, no, that's a real good point. And I think Josephine mentioned that, is that whole bathroom bill, when people were going, oh my God, strangers going to come in there and abduct my children, that is very rare, very rare. So it's unfortunate that that fear has led people to believe that's what typical sexual abuse is, but it's not. The typical sexual abuse happens within families, and that's something that we have to be aware of, because that then, when you see that family members, parents, stepdads, when that's occurring, it crosses economic lines also. It happens within the upper middle class also. All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to 2 philosophies that guide child protective services. And I'm just going to, I'll just talk about them. I do want you to know what these 2 terms are, but these are the 2 main philosophies that guide CPS today, and that's family preservation and permanency planning. So the first one, family preservation, the whole CPS system still does say it's best if we keep families together. And so CPS, I will give it to them, mainly because we don't have the resources outside of a family, but kinship care is a major program right now, looking for, if we have to remove somebody from a family, let's find somebody within the family who might take them. If I have to, if mom or dad is abusing a child, I need to look to grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunts who can take kids in. So the CPS system still does believe in family preservation. So when a child is moved out of the family, they still work to try to get that child back into the family. However, there is another philosophy that is a good philosophy, because it again speaks to the looking out for the benefit of the child, and that is permanency planning. Children having a permanent place where they can be nurtured and loved. The problem is that these 2 things can come into conflict when because you believe in family preservation, you want to keep the family together, but if there's abuse going on and you move somebody out of the family, And then you have this idea that we need to make sure that there's permanent family. The reason these two conflict with each other is judges, when a child has been removed from the family, they want something permanent within a year. Well, if I remove a child from a family and temporarily into foster care, that means I only have a year to get them back. And so that can be a major conflict, because even though I'm trying to preserve the family, if I can't do it in a year, I have to disband the family. So be aware of that, because it is one of the major problems within the Child Protective Services. One of the great things that has happened within almost every state with regard to Child Protective Services is the establishment of guardian ad litem. And here in Texas, we have the Child Advocacy Program that is part of the guardian ad litem. And these are individuals who only represent the best interest of children. Here in Texas, we have CASA, court-appointed special advocates, CASA, court-appointed special advocates who are guardian ad litem. And these people are volunteers who are trained to represent the best interest of the child. They're not there. They visit kids in foster care. They visit them in their own homes. When they do visit them, they talk to the child. They don't focus on the foster parent. They don't focus on the parent or guardians. They're there about the children. And so when these guardian ad litem or the CASA volunteers go to court, the judges so often say, I want to hear first from the guardian ad litem over anybody from CPS, over any attorney that's representing the foster parents or any attorney that's representing the family. So they're very well respected within the courts when it comes to family issues. Okay, that's it. Great. Okay. All right, where'd everybody go? See, I knew I'd lose everybody. Everybody turned their video off and they went to go watch whatever's on now at almost 6 o'clock in the evening. Here we come back. There we go. Thank you. All right. Okay, questions, comments before we move on.
Gaspar had a couple in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Yes, okay, so in answer to your question, and I will do a review for our tests, but I do want you to know all 4 categories of child maltreatment. So physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, and neglect. You need to know those 4 categories. You do need to know the 2 definitions, permanency planning and permanency planning and family preservation. Those 2. Need to know that. You do need to know the Violence Against Women Act and CAPTA. You do not need to know that it was in 1974, and you definitely don't need to know that Debbie and I started dating in 1974. But if you do, you do.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, this has nothing to do with you or your class, but is there anything in the course that talks about the disability as equal right for everyone?
Okay. I'm not sure of your question.
So the Disability Act, when it was effective, that all disabled people are equal. I'm not sure what year that was released.
That was.
I don't know if you're gonna talk about that later. It was just curiosity I have.
I don't know if it will come up. I do know in the history of social work, that was back in 1964, and that was discrimination based on sex, on gender, on sex, on race, and on disability. That was 1964. That was that may be what I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to have time to go into that much more on that. But if we have time, we'll definitely go there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaspar. All right. Thank you, folks. I'm not sure about the lecture portion of this, if it actually works that well, especially when I throw the PowerPoint up there. I can't see when you're glazing over, but I'm assuming the minute I put the PowerPoint up there, you begin glazing over. So we'll keep working on it.
Oh.
Anyway, I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you all. You bring out the best in me, and I hope you see that I love being a social worker. And if nothing else, from this introduction to social work, I think you know, if you want to get into it, or if you want to know social workers, you know, kind of know what we're made of. So, and Anna's raising her hand, or just accidentally. No, okay. I'm just now occasionally seeing hands go up. All right. I'm going to figure out this this Zoom thing. I'll figure it out and see if we do need a password. But for now, I'm going to say, when you get into the Zoom next week, remember the password is capital CISBA 1989. That same password, and I'll just plan on using that. If nothing else, that will help with our security. I'm going to see if I can get anyone from the Zoom community to talk to me and say, and my question of them is, why did you put that password on when I did not request it? So, but also I had to put people in a Zoom meeting today. I had to put them into a waiting room, and that they added that. I think they're adding these features just sporadically. And the other thing I know is Zoom has just exploded with people using it. And I know they don't have the support to figure it out, but they're trying to get the security. So if nothing else, this was a little bit more secure. And so you can know, I don't think anybody crashed except for that woman named Support, and I took care of her. I honestly, when you came in, I thought, Judy, I thought it was like, okay, Support, wait a minute, okay, somebody's trying to Zoom bomb, you know. It's like there's nobody called Support, so I'm going to click on that and it's going to be boom, ha ha, you know, whatever. So
That's a pretty cool name. Too bad I did it on accident.
I know. Okay, I could. Okay, next week I'll change your name back from Judy to Support, so something like that.
No, change it to Hey Jude.
Yeah, I should do that like right now. Don't let me down. Oh, so did you get to see, or have you seen Yesterday? Okay.
No, I haven't seen it, but I heard a lot of things about it. And I want to.
Okay, so real quick on Yesterday, and this will be a spoiler alert. And actually, I think it is actually on part of the trailer. Is they change it from Hey Jude to Hey Dude.
No way! I'm not watching it.
You need to watch Yesterday. It's funny, especially if you like the Beatles.
I love the Beatles.
Ed Sheeran is on there, and he's talking to this guy, and he's like, "Oh no," he goes, "Change the song from Hey Jude to Hey Dude." So it's Ed Sheeran, you know, the wonderful artist, you know, who writes this beautiful song, Ed Sheeran, and so he's singing Hey Dude, Doody Doody Doody, you know. Anyway, so it's one of the funniest parts of the movie, but especially if you like the Beatles in any way, it's a great show. Anyway, there's my thought for the night. So, hey, Jude, we'll see you next week. Thanks, folks. I really enjoyed today. I appreciate all of who you are, and I will see you in a week. Please let me know if you have any questions on assignments and things like that. Just email me, call me, whatever. I think the Blackboard thing is working okay. If you're having any issues with that, let me know if something's not getting posted. But I think we're in good shape. Thank you for the thumbs up, Andrew. All right, folks. I'll see you next week. Y'all be good.
Thanks, Professor. Good night.
Thank you. Reach out if you're feeling lonely. Okay.
There you go. Have a good week, guys.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Bye now. Bye, Chastity. I can't hear you, but bye. Bye, Tabby. I'm ending the meeting. Bye.